Hey everybody, it's Bill Tarr from the SaaS Factory back again, and today I'm interviewing Darren Mills of SaaS Competency partner CleanSlate. So Darren, to kick us off here, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and what you do over at CleanSlate?
Sure. Thanks, Bill. So I've been in the industry for over 25 years, and I've played various roles throughout that. I started out of college in software development. I pivoted into some security where I did penetration testing, firewall installs, things like that, which led into networking and got into some system administration. But my passion was really in software development. That's where I gravitated to. That's where I felt like I was in control of the world, where I could do what I needed to do. I wasn't worried too much about bugs and softwares because I could code around it. Um, I've been in the AWS space for about the last 10 years, been building solutions there and loving it. But now I'm starting to transition over into the new space, into the management space, where I am the CTO at CleanSlate. So I've been a lifelong coach in sports, and CleanSlate's given me the opportunity to help build high performing teams. While I'm still very much hands on in the technical space, I love to surround myself with people that are smarter than me. So I don't mind being the dumbest guy in the room now because I can learn from my team. But I do have a lot of industry experience, and so I can take some of that experience that I have, combine that with the knowledge of my team, and we can help accelerate the solutions for our customers. I've been in lots of different customers in all sorts of shapes and sizes and industries, and I can take bits and pieces about what's worked well. I can take bits and pieces about what has not worked well to really start shape the journey of where our clients go. So that's why I've been with CleanSlate for just about 8 years. They've been able to allow me to build a team of very talented individuals and being able to bring to me complex problems that we can help our customers solve.
Great, great. And as we introduced you guys as a SaaS competency partner, do you mind telling me a little bit about CleanSlate's experience as a SaaS competency partner?
Yeah, absolutely. We love to find legacy complex applications and then help a customer accelerate their journey to AWS, building out a SaaS framework. So a lot of the clients that we come to, they have some type of in-tier application that doesn't really work well in the cloud environment, right? It doesn't perform well, and when it does perform well, it's too costly, and it's just not sexy. It doesn't attract that top talent. So we are a full service company. We want to be able to provide a SaaS solution from start to finish, meaning we can start with the cloud infrastructure. We build everything as infrastructure as code. We follow the well-architected framework. We try to automate everything as possible as well. While we do the automation, we try to put together the right quality tool gates so that way we can be able to move fast. We can specialize in product design and really that SaaS discovery. So how do we take a product that a customer has, envision it in order to help them maximize their return on investment as they move towards a SaaS model. But our specialty is really in the application and data modernization space. We excel at helping customers take those big monolithic applications and decompose them into microservices, help increase their business agility and the velocity at which they can help release features to production. We do that by following a domain-driven design approach, which is really pretty revolutionary to customers who are used to that traditional in-tier design pattern. When we start talking about microservices and what it means to not use a monolithic database, a lot of people are skeptical, but we can use our track record to prove that this is the right pattern to go, and it's where customers are moving towards. Which leads into that data modernization, right? So as long as we are following the microservice patterns, we have to eliminate those data silos and be able to bring that data together in a data lake, and to really be able to help them make better business decisions from that organizational data.
Right. Right. And I hear a lot of interesting DevOps practices. You're talking about microservices, you're talking about time to value, and talking about improving the agility of your customers. Have you found that within this sort of realm of DevOps, that there's specific industries or areas that have started to emerge as specialties for CleanSlate, where all of these DevOps best practices are proving to be particularly useful to your customers?
Yeah, I mean, we've done work in the financial services space and the digital tech, ed tech, manufacturing. We've covered a gamut of different industries, but they all have a similar problem. How do we get features out to our customers fast? And those DevOps principles are really kind of key to that. We can move fast, but we can also means we can move bugs into production fast. So we want to make sure that we can take a lot of the quality control points, unit test, integration testing, static code analysis, security review and analysis, and inject that into the DevOps pipelines. So that way, while we're meeting the business needs to be agile and fast, we're not doing it recklessly to where we're introducing issues into the production environment.
Right. Right. And that is the other side of the sword, right? Is you're introducing things faster, you're increasing agility, but you're also increasing risk, right? And making sure you
Right.
mitigate that risk and handle it properly is incredibly important. Now, I'm kind of curious, is there a specific use case or customer that you sort of have in mind as you're talking about these practices where you felt like they've been particularly impactful that you'd want to talk about?
Yeah, there's one of the customers that we worked with. They are a manufacturing company, but they have a very strong digital presence. They had a lot of issues when we came to them. They were at capacity at their data center, so they were not able to expand to meet their customer demand. There's a very seasonal approach to this customer's workload. In the springtime, they see a huge spike in volume, and in order for them to meet their manufacturing demands, they weren't able to keep up on the digital side to be able to get all their orders entered into the system correctly. This also led to they didn't have enough capacity to be able to produce their non or to allow for non-production environments. So they weren't able to do like we talked about the feature velocity. We're not able to develop features as quickly as they needed to. There's some other things that went along with that. Is the customer had a deprecated technology stack, so a lot of their solution was built on Flash, and their
Mhm.
particular customer base that they were targeting was not allowing Flash to be ran. So they had to not only pivot from their data center standpoint to be able to expand capacity, but they also had to completely change their technology stack. And with that legacy architecture came functionality that was very tightly coupled. So, in order to do their deployments, they were going with a monolithic deployment approach, having to deploy everything every time, which was slow, cumbersome, and highly error prone. What all this meant was is that they were opening the door for their competition and at risk of losing some of their market share.
Right. Right. And so obviously, this is a migration story. We're talking about migrating off an existing technology stack, off of their data centers where they were hard capped in terms of their ability to grow. When you first engaged with them, what was sort of the first part of the architecture that you helped break down for them? How did you get them to sort of, to buy into the architecture that you were offering to them and show how they were able to solve a lot of their problems by moving to AWS?
Yeah, well, it came back to that key that the data center was out of capacity. They could not add more servers to be able to, meet their customer demand. And so that's where AWS and their auto scaling technology really started to drive the business decision, because it's we don't have to be constrained by how much server rack space do we have in a data center. We can now move to the cloud and be able to infinitely scale. So we started with just kind of the basics, really, using the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework. We started to help plan the roadmap, design what that platform looked like, ensure they had the proper security and governance procedures in place, and then validate from a people and process standpoint that they were going to be covered from an operational standpoint. So, this platform is made up of lots of different applications, and we had to go through an application inventory and assessment. And we used the 6R approach then to determine, what was going to be that migration strategy and how do we transform that into a SaaS platform. Most of the applications that we analyzed end up with more of a replatforming, lift, shift, and tinker mentality, which is where we were, kind of ready to begin that migration approach and start to get them moved to the cloud. So if we start to talk about what did that architecture look like, we follow the well architected framework, to build out a cost-effective, scalable, and secure tenant. We used a multi-account strategy to help make sure we had proper isolation between applications and environments, and that led to Terraform being used for all the infrastructure as code. We were able to provision environments in approximately 30 minutes. We utilized ECS for containerizing the application. That's one of the paths that we took, is to take a lot of their legacy monolithic applications and break those down into, what I call mini monolithic applications that we're able to containerize. We used Oracle RDS for the database.
Mhm.
We had Amazon MQ for some of the messaging. We had S3 for object storage. We had API Gateway and Lambda for a lot of the service functions, and then there was a ton of other AWS services like CloudFront, CloudWatch, CloudTrail, and some others.
Yeah. So obviously a much more sustainable, growth-oriented SaaS architecture. Can you think of any concrete data that sort of was the outcome of this? So a better architecture, better growth, but were there some concrete data around improved onboarding time or revenue or performance that you can cite that sort of speaks to, for other customers considering this journey, what you can get out of moving to AWS?
Yeah, so let me kind of re-baseline some of the problems they had and some of the things that we ran into as we were starting this journey. So one of the first complexities was, this was an extremely complex application with lots of tight coupling and years of technical debt. I think at the time the application was about 12 years or 13 years old. So there was a ton of technical debt, which really made containerizing these applications hard. They additionally had, since their customers were very seasonal, like I mentioned, they had a limited schedule in order to be able to get things out the door. So there was a very high development velocity that was required. And I think we peaked at around 12 development teams running in parallel, which meant we need to have 12 different sandbox environments before things would get moved into a dev environment. And what we were at previously is it was taking, weeks and weeks to get a new environment provision. So being able to drive that provisioning of an environment down to, less than 30 minutes was really key to the success of the project. And also I believe there's like 8,000 different institutions that use this application with over 100,000 concurrent users. So there was extreme amount of data volume. We used DMS to be able to synchronize their on-premise database into AWS, and it took basically 6 weeks to synchronize that data. Meanwhile, we had to make sure that as the transition and migration was happening, all of the customers' data was up to date. We had zero tolerance for data loss because these institutions were, manipulating their data along the way, and we didn't have the time to be able to do a cutover appropriately. So I think at the time we were running an Oracle database. It was one of the largest in the U.S. East 2 region, I believe is what the AWS solution architect mentioned to us. So if we talk about what kind of outcomes do we have from doing the SaaS journey, one of the biggest ones was we're able to increase the stability, give them a modern user experience, and that increased development velocity to be able to push out new features for their customers was paramount. What that meant in a business standpoint is that they had a 30% growth in revenue during their first year after this was rolled out. Their customer satisfaction scores went way up. They increased their retention for their customers. We moved the velocity of deployments from somewhere that was in the monthly range to something that could be done daily and during business hours. And just the ability to be able to provision new development environments, to be able to sustain that parallel development, getting that down to under an hour compared to the weeks was really critical to the project success.
Yeah, and absolutely amazing. Really, it speaks to a lot of the value proposition of both SaaS and DevOps to be able to get that type of agility and get those type of results. And I assume if you were talking to other customers who are facing similar challenges, would these be the sort of things that you'd explain to them in terms of the value proposition of SaaS, or how would you position SaaS to new customers who are coming into AWS?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a good question, and I've had been conversations with clients over the last several years that have really, given me pause. I'm like, okay, wow, there's some things I just haven't thought of from a business standpoint. I typically approach these problems from a technical standpoint because that is my background. But one of the things that I think has been very interesting is that the customer's changing in the SaaS market. A lot of the companies had built their business through great customer relationships. Picking up the phone, being able to call someone, talk to someone about my problems. But the new customers changing, they don't want to pick up the phone. They want to be able to do everything online. So if I were to give some words of wisdom out to companies, embarking on that SaaS journey, the first one is have a simple onboarding process and registration process. Customers don't want to pick up the phone and call someone. They want to be able to do this 100% online with no gotchas. They don't want to be constrained into any kind of contract. They like the month-to-month value. They want to try before you buy the product. The ease of integration and onboarding is critical. And you have to approach that both from a low tech standpoint and a high tech standpoint. So from a low tech, a customer is wanting to adopt your SaaS platform. They want to be able to get things in. They want to be able to set it up. They want to be able to have good documentation about how do they use your platform. to accelerate their business. And then you have also high-tech companies that they might want to use your UI, but they also might want to use an API-led approach. They might want to be able to use your platform and the business intelligence process of it to be able to expose that to their own platforms. So being able to use have an API that's well documented and available to use for customers is also pretty critical. Some of the other things that we've come across is just price transparency. Trying to figure out how much the solution is going to cost per user per month, however that's going to work. And that's where the AWS Marketplace really becomes critical for companies to be able to go on that SaaS journey, because they provide you all the tools to be able to measure, bill, and charge that back to your customers. The user experience is also very critical. So you want to be able to have a superior user experience. So that UI UX experience is critical to make sure that customers can have a simple application to be able to use. They can use it effectively. And then if you've done all that well, you really need to consider building a platform that can scale. We're all hoping that product goes viral and that you're going to have to go from, let's say, 100 users to 100,000 users. And you want to be able to have that scale appropriately without having to do a major re-architecture to your platform.
Amazing. Darren, thank you. This has been a great conversation. I think anyone who's listening probably has a much better idea about the value proposition of SaaS, DevOps, and why partnering with a SaaS competency partner like CleanSlate can be valuable to your journey for SaaS. So thank you very much for joining us today.
All right, great. Thank you, Bill.
Awesome.